everybody
We don't need this yet.
to the budget workshop, Board of Education meeting as well, following. It is May
13th.
I don't want to get it wrong. So we will turn the time over to Dr. Cantor.
Thank you, Madam President, Superintendent Graves, members of the board, fellow administrators, and members of the community. My name is Dr. Philip Kenter. I'm the business administrator, and tonight I'm presenting for the May 13th our budget hearing presentation. Tonight is the budget hearing, and all these slides have been presented in the past. This is a recap of our budget development process. This district has been committed in finding additional cost savings and revenue streams in every area of our school district operations. We've made every attempt to be as transparent as possible with the development of our budget. All of our presentations and a detailed line-by-line budget can be found on our website, and this particular slide, if you were to click it, it will take you directly to the budget portion of our website. And the adopted budget for the 2019-2020 school year is $42,885,375. This is a budget-to-budget increase of 2.4%, and I might add CPI is at 2.44%, so it's below CPI. It's a budget-to-budget increase of $1,004,479. The tax levy limit was calculated at 4.56%. The board approved a tax levy increase of only 3%. So the tax levy will be $38,687,974 for public vote on May 21st. The tax levy limit would have been $39,274,356. We are under the tax levy limit by $586,382. That's 1.56% under. And I might comment that for the 8th year in a row, we are presenting a tax levy lower than the tax levy limit. And this is a sample of what the Sag Harbor School District budget newsletter will look like. That will shortly be mailed out to the entire community. This slide is a recap of our fund balance and all of our reserves. They are listed by title. They show the balances in each respective reserve as of June 30th, 2018, and what was put in the last year and what the balances are. The adopted budget expenditures for 2019-20, I've got this slide broken down into 4 categories, constituting the $42,885,375. You'll see in the left column is our current 2018-19 budget, which ends June 30th of this year. That budget is $41,888,96, was vote approved. Our current adopted budget, that's up for vote May 21st, is $42,885,375, a $1,004,479 increase, or 2.3%. And the categories demonstrate that the most significant increase and money allocated is directly related to programs for students. This particular slide shows how we intend to pay for the 2019-2020 adopted budget. Once again, you'll see in the left column our 2018-19 current budget, which ends June 30th of this year. We're anticipating $1,997,000 in state aid, and then the other columns, $150,000 in payments in lieu of taxes, $724,000 in non-resident tuition, then facilities usage, shared services, $247,000. The largest portion is the tax levy of $37,561. You will notice that for the 2019-2020 adopted budget, very similar along the same lines. We're anticipating $2,004,000 in state aid, $157,000 in pilots, $1,033,000 in non-resident tuition, $415,000 in shared services and facilities usage, grants, interest, and miscellaneous revenue, $117,000. The general fund tax levy at 3%, $38,687,974. And we're going to appropriate $470,000 once again from our employee retirement system reserve to balance the budget of $42,885,375. This slide shows the impact of a 3% tax levy increase for the average homeowner in both town of East Hampton and Southampton, with a home with an assessed value of $1 million. For East Hampton, the increase at 3% would be estimated at $150.75 per year, or at $12.56 per month. On the Southampton side, it is estimated at $136.60 per year, or $11.38 per month. This is a copy of the school district budget notice, which will be in the budget newsletter, which again will be mailed out shortly. And it breaks out our current budget by the amount, the tax levy, and it also breaks out the three components of a school district for our current year and proposed for next year, 1920, an administrative program and capital components. We are also required by law to present what's called a contingency budget should the budget fail after 2 votes or by board designation and approval. The district would go to a contingency budget, which removes all capital projects and equipment, with the exception of special education equipment, and that brings our budget from $42,885,375 to $42,287,89. The budget statement is posted in paper form as well as electronically. The budget statement can be found at the front office of both of our respective schools, the elementary school as well as the high school. We have another copy at the John Germain Library, along with handouts from the budget adoption meeting. We also have 2 hard copies in the business office, and our technology department was kind enough to scan the entire 167-page document in, and it is also can be found on our website with the other budget documents. And this slide just breaks down what the budget statement is comprised of. This is a slide you've seen in the past from 2004 until last year, where our tax levy budget results have been, wherein you'll see particularly the last 8 years in yellow. This community has very much supported the school district and the budget vote. I mentioned if the proposed budget fails, what happens, and the board can either resubmit the defeated budget, come up with a new budget, and have a second vote, or we must adopt the contingency budget. And this slide shows our adopted budget of $42,885,375. It shows the contingency budget of $42,287,89. That is a difference of $492,48, or less 1.15%. And again, the difference comes out of capital projects and capital equipment. This slide is a 3-part component comparison. All school district budgets are made up of 3 significant components. The administrative component, which is the least amount of component, showing our current adopted budget of $3,889,269 is allocated to administrative, and that's a difference of $488,945. Program component, which again is the most significant amount of the school district, because that's direct program to students, at $33,885,49. That's a $513,000 increase over the current year. And then the capital component went up very, very slightly by just $1,709 for the grand total of $42,885,375. There will be an additional proposition on the ballot for May 21st, and I'll read it. The district is requesting authorization to purchase a 2019 Freightliner chassis Thomas body school bus at a maximum cost of $103,524, and a 2019 1500 series Chevrolet Fleet Suburban school bus with 4-wheel drive at a maximum cost of $74,922. The funds for these purchases would be appropriated from the Transportation Fleet Capital Reserve Fund that has been previously authorized by the public and established for this purpose, and as a result, this purchase requires no increase in taxes. There would be no cost additional to the taxpayers because the money is coming out of that reserve fund. And I just want to reiterate once again, we encourage everyone to please come out and vote. And the budget vote and election are Tuesday, May 21st, at Pearson High School Gym from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And at this time, this final slide is one that we don't take for granted. A big thank you to all of our taxpayers who continually show their support for the funding of the school district. As you saw in that previous slide, the bulk of the school district is paid for by the tax levy, by the kind people of this community. I also, at this time, want to thank with deepest gratitude my fellow administrators, my staff in the business department, Board of Education trustees, and the superintendent, everyone who's worked so hard in developing this year's proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Cantor?
That was in record time.
He's got it down pat.
He does. He can say it backwards in a pig button.
And we'll start again next year.
Any questions?
No.
All right, so at this time, I guess we'll open the meeting for the educational meeting, Board of Education meeting. Can I get a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
People need a second to log in, so maybe we'll do it manually. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous.
Just make sure you all refresh, because I changed a few things.
Okay. Are we concerned that people may be planning on coming to the meeting, we're starting 45 minutes early?
We
It
changed the,
says immediately following.
yeah,
the
now
budget.
instead of saying it's,
Unify? Okay. Thank you.
there's the IBI group. and it's not a lot, just, okay.
All right, while people are logging in and waiting for their computers to fire up, let's stand for the pledge.
Oh, Jesus.
Aye.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, thank you. Did you think, Jack Nichols goes to
No, he's gonna do it during the, and I told him to be here at 7:15. But I'm worried about our architect. I'm just gonna make sure he's available. But you have something to go first.
So we'll start with public input one. Is there anybody here for public input one? Nobody for public input one? All right. All right, we'll start with the superintendent's report. There was something that came up from a board member this week. They wanted a reminder about the board, how the election will go down, right? Because if you recall, the seat that Brian DeSessa is now filling is up for expiration next Tuesday. So depending on how that vote goes, Brian is running for election, so is Chris, so are several other people, some of who are here in the audience tonight. We have a lot of people running for the 3 open seats, and so depending on who gets the highest votes, we have a few different scenarios to look at. So I thought I would just, I found the slides from when we were trying to decide what to do with the vacancy with January's seat.
Yes.
And I sent them to the administration last minute, so I appreciate you throwing it in there. So I just want to walk the board through the process. And this process I had gotten from several lengthy conversations with our attorney. So just as you recall, we had laid out a timeline, and then the candidate appointed, which is Brian DeSessa, will fill the vacancy until May 21st. And then that seat becomes vacant again. So then what happens is, based on the outcome of the vote next Tuesday, the first and second highest vote getters get the longest term, which would be a 3-year term commencing at the July reorg meeting. The third highest vote getter would get the shortest term, which would actually be the 1-year, 6-week term that would commence on May 21st, next Tuesday. So we don't know who's going to be the first, second, and third highest vote getters until next Tuesday. So we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. So one of the things to consider is that if, and Susan has decided not to run, and candidate X is now Brian DeSessa. If Brian gets the first or second highest vote getters, he will actually vacate his seat for 6 weeks. So you get a little hiatus, and then you would come back at the reorg.
Diana, just as a reminder, one of the things we did when Mr. Scaboni was in the same situation was that the board opted, and he was willing to get sworn in immediately, so there was a continuity. So, and we had pressure tested, at least at that time, we were told by our attorney that that was an option. So I just wanted to share that if that scenario happened, and the board, it was the will of the board, then they could even be sworn in that night, or at the following meeting, just so that you'll have a full board for the balance of the year. So,
Well, whoever's the third highest vote getter would get sworn in that night.
Right, I think
no,
the
but
problem-
no, I'm talking about this different scenario. When Tommy John Scaboni was appointed, and then he ran and won, he would have had to be off from May until the July reorg. So we opted to swear him in so we could have continuity service in 7. So,
It also becomes an issue if, in the scenario where if Chris is third and Brian's first or second, then she's occupying 2 seats at once, and we only have a 6-person board. So that would be a scenario where it might make sense to
so anyway,
swear
I'm
Brian
throwing
in.
it out there because it's an option. It's up to the board whether they want to do it, but it's an option that's been exercised in the past, and then you have your 7 board members in continuity.
So these what-if scenarios,
Yes.
we may have to take some board action that night. So I think I'm going to recommend that the board convenes at the close of that vote so that we can make a decision about, what we want to do moving forward. But again, we won't even know until that night how this is going to play out. But I did want to just kind of remind the board about what the rules are and how they work. So if you have questions that you want me to run by the attorney in the next week about certain scenarios, let me know.
Okay.
All right? Any questions about that? All right? Are there other parts of the superintendent's report that we're ready for?
I think we're going to be getting our IBI group on the phone, on the Google
Yes.
Hangouts. I'm getting better at this.
Check, Jive.
Yeah. I was working on 3 presentations simultaneously because I swore I wouldn't work on Mother's Day, so.
Did you successfully not work on Mother's Day?
Well, I have to tell you, I was binge watching Royal Pains, which takes place on the East End, and so I was really kind of going, oh, I know that place, I know that place.
Somebody else was telling me they do that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, they do. I
Yeah.
saw some stuff filmed on Job's Lane about
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So they did the car crash episode. It was like the Lamborghini crash.
It
was there.
definitely is filmed, a lot of it's
And
filmed on the
I've
East
seen
End.
them. I've seen the leads walking on Main Street before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so
They
interesting.
occasionally come out here. The big place he lives in is actually up island. The Osaka Castle, which is open to the public, it's spectacular, but it's near Huntington.
Oh, he
Wow.
Castle, yeah.
Oh, is it what it's called?
Oh, he.
Hey, Ed, can you hear us
thank you.
okay?
Ohika Castle.
Looks like he's not
I can't hear him.
right. He is.
Doesn't it?
I see it.
Okay.
Ed, can you hear us?
And you have his presentation in front of you in this, it's in the second half of this,
Oh, great. Thank you.
this one. Right here. You'll have it.
Is my copy?
Yep. Well, you don't like paper, but sometimes.
What I heard that. Hang on a second, Ed.
He might be on mute.
Yeah.
He's muting
this earlier this week and it was fine.
I've also had this problem with Google Hangouts before. If you restart the whole system.
Kinda like turning off Star Trek Enterprise and turning it back on, Scotty.
Well, I just found that I had that problem at Google Hangouts if I used a different meeting app intervening.
Yeah. Oh,
So if I
yeah.
used FaceTime or Zoom or something and then went to Google Hangouts, the sound didn't transfer.
Yeah. There's a lot of success.
We can't get the meeting back up.
I don't have any lights down here, but let's see if that one's pushed in all the way.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
now
Yeah.
we can. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to bring up a slide deck, so bear with me one moment. Can you see our screen, Ed? Ed, are you seeing our screen? Trying again, Ed, sorry.
That's all right. Actually, Scott, what may have to happen is I'll share my screen and I can present from my end,
Okay,
if you'd like to do that.
sure, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you so much for giving us some time tonight to give you guys an update on the Sag Harbor Learning Center. One of the neat things is that we finally have some good information to present to you guys, some good news. So without further ado, I'm going to start the presentation here. So can you guys see our update slide here for the Sag Harbor Learning Center?
We can, thank you.
All right, great. So, one of the first things that we'd like to report for the financial report is that we now currently have all of our prime contractors in place. We've bid all of the general construction, mechanical construction, electrical construction, and plumbing construction. In addition, we also have all of our state contract vendors in place through working with the district. So one of the things that you'll see here is for our construction contracts on the bonded side of the project, we are at $5,347,872. When we add to that our incidental costs that we're forecasting, the $1,516,499, that puts our total at this number here, our $6,864,371. Now, as you recall from previous presentations, our budget was actually just over $6.9 million. So really, what we're looking at right now is an anticipated surplus of about $37,000. All of these numbers really mean that on the bonded side of the project, with everything told and some forecasting on what some of the soft costs may be towards the end of the project, that we are definitely on budget. And we are actually well into beginning the construction. So as we move on,
Want to see if they have any questions on that part?
Does
one
anybody
of
have any
the
questions on that?
additional things that we've talked about in the past is that we anticipated some extra costs outside of the bonded side of the project. Initially, we put our estimate as $1.4 million, as you can see toward the bottom of the screen here. That was our budget that we set. Well, we currently have all of those items in place, and as you can see here, here's the list. We had some additional work done by a state contract vendor for demolition in the basement, preparation for abatement that was happening in the building, and also fire and egress wall construction. We also had security doors and fire safety doors put into place, as you can see at this number here, the $273,680. We had flooring done. This piece was initially flipped with what we were going to do, which was security work using the vendor that's familiar with the district Interlogic, but we wound up fitting that actually into the bonded side of the project. So we actually have a vendor on state contract that's familiar with the district, Milburn Flooring, and they've actually are using products that the district selected for all of the flooring finishes throughout the project. And that's at $317,138. Also included in this is playground equipment, $55,880.72. And then, as we talked about in the past, the abatement. There are two numbers here because at first we did primarily the abatement based off of a survey that was done by Broderick, who is a vendor that the district is familiar with working with and has worked at the other buildings on campus. And that's the initial abatement that was done. Once we got into demolition and we actually opened up some other walls and some other cooling systems, we've actually found some additional abatement that we needed to come back and take care of that as well. And that's the $24,303.86. On top of that, whenever you do hazardous materials abatement, obviously you need the air quality monitoring and testing. And so the $16,000 was also paid to Broderick to do that testing and monitoring. But the good news is that all told, the expenses that we've incurred is actually $1,313,076, which is well within our 1.4 budget that we've set. And again, these are the expenses outside of the bonded side of the project. So before I go any further, is there any questions on the current financial status of the project?
Any questions from the board?
The only question I have, and I'm just seeing this, if it's in here and I'm asking a question that you answer, then I apologize. Is there a place we have where it's kind of broken out a little more about what the budget was, what has been spent, and then what's still to outlay? Just so that it's really clear to everyone, because there's so much misperception, I think, on just how much is spent and where we're at, that, just greater detail than
Yes. Actually, there's a really in-depth detail, if you check the board meeting minutes, that we did a presentation where we went through all of the detailed financial breakout of the project, and that was done December 2nd in 2017.
No, I'm not talking about.
We can send that presentation. Katie,
I have it. I have
I
it.
sent you that presentation again, so we can
Yeah.
distribute that if needed.
I'm sorry, my question probably wasn't clear. We have that's posted. What I'm saying is against what was there. I'm just saying a check against it, like side by side, like this is what we forecasted, this is where we're at. I just think it's that second piece that if people can see, this is a summary, but that's a little bit more detailed. I think it would just be helpful.
Oh, sure. You mean, do you think you would need the same amount of detail that we had in that original financial assessment? Is it per scope item, you're saying?
You know what, that was what, 17 months ago, so I'd have to look at it to answer that, but this is a roll-up, which is good, but it kind of doesn't give you that tracking against it. So it's just a request, but again, I think there's much misperception in the community, so the more transparent we can be, and the more regularly there are updates, the greater clarity we have.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if we can have some discussions, too, if you can let Mrs. Graves know, if there's something particular in the detail that you would like. But for starters, I think we can separate it out into, for instance, the prime contracts, and what we estimated them to be to begin with and where they are now.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you, go ahead.
So, based on that, where, as we're saying, this is the phase one of the project that we talked about, and we are on budget for phase one, both on the bonded side and on the additional expenditure side. One of the things that we were also asked to present is going forward from this point. And again, here, this is some of the information that was requested based on the question of what exact roofing was included in the original piece, which is right now, currently, we've replaced the educational side, the Sag Harbor Learning Center side of the roofing, which, as you can see here, was the initial estimate and breakdown in the scope document.
So the reason I added this to the IBI presentation was that we had questions from a board member, which means they're hearing it in the community, that was the, I think you have to go back, is that the first one I put in?
Oh, that's the second one.
That's the second one.
Yeah.
Can you go back one slide? So, for example, that there was a perception potentially that the original presentation by IBI was for the wing, the replacement of the entire roof, and it clearly, from their presentation from December 2nd, 2017, and I put an arrow marking where it says replace classroom wing roofing. It was not the roofing for the entire building. So we just wanted to clear up that misperception that was out there, because this is obviously their presentation that itemizes everything. And then if, and I do want to say that sometimes these numbers will shift in a 2-year period before we get out to bid. So, there may be some shifts when you see numbers come through. And then if you want to go to the next one.
Katie, in terms of the roofing, I know the presentation from October 2017 had replace flat roofing at auditorium.
So the
So
audit,
I think that might have led people to believe that it's the whole roof, because they didn't realize the whole roof isn't flat.
No,
So I
right.
think that's
Oh.
what caused,
Oh.
that's what caused the confusion, because I remember that confusion too, and then I went back the previous, I'm like, it said flat roofing, and those of us that aren't tall enough to see what that roof looks like, might have thought the whole thing was flat versus, I think some is pitched, right?
the
most of
majority,
it's-
the
right,
roof,
most is pitched.
the roof
Right.
over the gymnasium, over the auditorium is pitched.
Right, and this said replace flat roofing at auditorium, so people thought, okay, that must be the auditorium roof.
Oh, that's a good point.
So that might have caused the
Yeah,
confusion.
that's a good point. And that future projects was the kitchen equipment renovations, that piece we knew that was gonna be bigger than the budget provided.
One of the things to keep in mind too, though, is that in the current project that's right now being constructed, not only are all of the preparations being made for the kitchen equipment, but in addition to that, we are putting in the actual kitchen hood, a stove unit, and also a sink unit, so that there is some accommodation for preparing minimal food there.
Thanks, I think that clears that up.
Okay. So, moving forward, on the other side of our building, the Sage Hall area, we've prepared some early budget estimates here of items that potentially the district and the board can take a look at for what could be the next steps over at the center. And so the first one we've already discussed in the previous board meeting, which is the roofing replacement we were just talking about. This roofing replacement actually is a quote that was given by Garland, by the contractor that did the roofing over the Learning Center portion of the building. And it is for those flat sections of roofing, replacing one of the pieces of deck, and then also doing the sloped roofing, the shingle roof as well. In addition to that, we have flooring replacement in the gymnasium, and this would include the abatement and monitoring required to get the asbestos material out of there, and then also coming back and putting in a poured rubber floor similar to the elementary school. After that, we have a mechanical system repair. There are 3 units that need repair, and the total would be $75,000 to bring those units back to the shape where they're fully functional. We also have front entry door replacement. This would be replacing those doors so they meet current safety and egress standards. And then we have ceiling replacement, including lighting. This would put in a new suspended cooling system while also bringing the lighting up to LED standards. Adding wireless and wired connectivity data systems into the space would be $5,000. Adding security systems we also took a look at. So this would be tying into the existing building system and the existing district system for monitoring cameras, door access control, and also intrusion detection. Then we have the PA system is the public address system, speakers, and connections for the space. We have an audio visual system. Now this system, just as a note, would be a very sort of straightforward, simple system that would allow for projection on a screen and then a simple speaker system, usually used for lectures or events where there's a minimal display or presentation. And then we have stage refinishing as another item that could be added. All of these items, as a next step, would total to the $589,761.
Now, Ed, I know there'll be a concern, we can still utilize this space without doing any of these upgrades. I would be concerned bringing pre-K into that space, and daycare into that space, but they have other places where they can play, and we have an additional classroom area that can be used for indoor play, we have the playground. But our children and students and community members, we have a certificate of occupancy, we can use that space. This is just upgrading it so it would match the other, we're upgrading the beautiful educational spaces, where the business office is going.
Correct.
So,
And so that it would match, when we began the project, we actually programmed the whole building, both the Learning Center side and the Sage Hall side. And so we talked with a number of stakeholders throughout the district as to what would be their wish list items and what would be their ultimate goal and ultimate vision for both of the sides of the building. So this would be to bring it up to those levels.
right, so this is future, it's not necessary, but while there's no children, nobody utilizing the building, it's in a construction phase right now, we have the construction workers on the scene, we don't have children in the building, we can utilize unassigned fund balance to meet these needs. You still have me here and my vision and my drive to get this done, and we have funds that are coming in that the school district can't really access right now. Like our funds that have come in from the tuitioning in have gone over what our projections were. So we can't spend more than the taxpayers authorized us. So that will have to be, estimated and documented by our auditors, and then we'll go back into reserves. So if we spend out of the unassigned fund balance, the funds that we have from all of those, have a place, they would go back into the unassigned fund balance. But again, it's not that we have leftover funds at the end of the year, it's that we can't spend more than the taxpayers have allowed us. And we've brought in transportation funds that probably can't go back into the transportation fund because that's reached its threshold of 2 million, and we have brought in more tuitioning in than right now we can really spend, because that's more than our taxpayers have authorized. So, I'd like to seize the day and while it's still a construction zone, manage through this list to make that space truly beautiful. It's a dated space, it looks dated, it feels dated, and this investment would make it a truly beautiful and very safe space. So, but you did have a couple other items as our architect you were going to recommend.
That we talked about as well with some of the district stakeholders. One of the things that we talked about is the district and the board may want to break out the walk-in cooler and freezer, just as Katie was saying, to fit that into the current construction now, because it's much easier to get those 2 units in at this time while the contractors are working on the space as opposed to a future time. So we feel that that would be approximately $75,000 just to do those 2 particular pieces of equipment. Also too, one of the things that, in our programming meetings, we found that the district does have plenty of furniture, for the pre-K program, and also, the other activities in the building. However, if we wanted to match, some of the furniture that was shown in some of the design concept renderings, that would be newer furniture, to outfit each classroom would be approximately $16,000 per classroom. And initially, it would start with the 3 classrooms. For more long-term items, while we had the repair costs for the units in a previous slide, that's something that can be done immediately. One of the long-term costs would be to replace those units in the system wholesale, because the system is getting older and it is an aging system. And so the $296,700 would be for a complete brand new heating and cooling system at Sage Hall.
The
Also,
reason I want to
The
interject,
district was interested in creating the space,
Ed,
so that higher level theatrical performances could happen there at the stage. Then a theatrical lighting system could be added, as well as a theatrical sound system at the respective costs that you see. And again, as we were talking about the rest of the commercial kitchen equipment, to have a full service commercial kitchen in the basement. And I have here less the walk-ins because we have the $75,000 on the other page for the walk-in cooler and freezer, would be approximately $350,000.
so I just want to interject, the reason we added this slide is if 2 years down the line, you don't get, oh, they keep piling it on. This is kind of the everything, so that we're being a little repetitive, but we don't want anybody, saying, well, you didn't tell us about, theatrical lighting systems or sound systems, because if we do start leasing that space out to any performing arts groups, might be something they might start asking or looking for. So we wanted to kind of do the ragu, it's all in there, and that we have those pieces, so that there is no surprises, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. Why wasn't that ever mentioned? Because,
So, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, it's fine.
The way that you've broken them out, is this almost like priority list, meaning like this would be most important, then this, and this was like, the further you get down the list, the more it becomes
So,
more wish listy?
No, yeah, definitely, this is very wish listy. The only, so the potential improvements, the 589,000 would make a lot of sense, because it would make that space beautiful while we've got construction work going on. The next page, the walk-in, was really a recommendation made by our facilities director, because he's watched building projects take place, and you put in the tile before you put in the toilet, and he's like, we're blowing that place wide open, and if we have to go back later and put in the walk-in cooler and the freezer, it could increase the cost so much more, and it's gonna happen. We're gonna have a walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer in there eventually. It would just be so much wiser to do it now than do it later. The other equipment can come in dribs and drabs, and if anybody's out there listening and wants to donate it, I'm all about it. I asked for trees, and we got about a dozen of them, so now I'm asking for kitchen equipment. So the walk-in, $75,000 can be donated tomorrow for this. So the walk-in cooler and freezer would make sense, and so to do it now rather than later on, where the cost could be much more, because it is in a basement, so that's where the kitchen's located. And the furniture, again, is nice but not necessary, because we bought furniture from the Catholic school church that's beautiful. We have beautiful furniture here, but this would be, as, my children would say, it'd be all matchy, It'd be matchy.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I just I think it would be helpful to understand apples to apples what we're talking about here. So I'm just looking at the summary future project slide from December 2nd, 2017. And I'm just trying to tie out each item to what you've presented in the next 3 slides. Because they're not called the same thing. So, for example.
Right, and actually, one of the things that you'll probably find is, we can try that as best we could, but a lot of the items won't, because since that presentation was made during design, there's actually been changes in the programs, there's been changes in some of our discussions with the stakeholders at the district. And so some of the design basis for what the costs that you're seeing there has also adjusted based on how that's happened. So we could try as best we could to match up every item. Some of them do match up, but other ones have changed based on their programming. So we could enumerate that for you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but I think, I mean, if we could just take a few minutes and go through it now, I mean, I would just like, for example, the second one, auditorium mechanical systems replacement, you have as 247,000, right? But then in the future considerations, you have it at 296,000, but then you have 75,000 for repairs.
Correct.
So
Yep.
is it, if we decided to do the 296,000 replacement, we would not incur the $75,000 repair?
Yes, that is right. That's correct.
Okay, and then,
And the reason you're seeing the replacement as the 296.7 is back when we did our original list here, as you see the 247, that's with the idea that it would not be a standalone project. It would actually be part of what the scope was, because when we were talking about this, it was, can these numbers fit into, a project that's happening potentially? So now that we're 2 years further down the road, and really we're looking that in order to do this item, it would probably be even further down the road. There is some more inflation included in that number.
okay, but so I think when we were all talking about starting on phase 2, right, I think the expectation was that this is the list we were kind of tackling other than the kitchen.
Right.
So I think it's important that we go through it. So the mechanical systems,
Yep.
that's one. So that would be 50,000 more than in that slide.
For
Right,
replacement.
correct.
For replacement. The baseboard heating repair at 21. Where is that on? Oh, flooring
So-
replacement for 140?
No, so what we found is actually in that 75,000, and this is something that we found since when we were able to get into the building and do some demo, is that baseboard repair would not need to happen if the 75,000 was spent on mechanical systems. They could control the heat to the level needed.
Okay, so that's no longer needed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we can cross that 21,000 off. The 240 becomes 290 if we do the replacement and not the repair. Then the
Correct.
flooring replacement we've already gone over.
Yes. Yep.
And that's actually 50,000 less than,
Yes, because the flooring replacement, this is one of the ones that I was referring to where the scope changed. When we were originally doing the design basement basis here, the flooring replacement was for a full gymnasium wood floor. And in talking with the district, it was really preferred that more of a general multi-purpose floor, similar to the elementary school, would be used. And that's the number that you actually see here, that's included for that poured rubber flooring.
got it, okay. And then the roofing we already,
Can I ask a question about that flooring? So is that flooring, can that also be used for middle and high school games, official games? Because we had talked
Yes,
about that when.
yes, for basketball and for volleyball, yes.
It can, so even though it's a multi-purpose floor and not a floor like in our high school or middle school, it still could be used for that.
I don't think we'd be playing games, I think they'd be practicing on those floors, that's not big enough for a game. I think they would be practicing.
The auditorium there is certainly big enough for volleyball. So that's why I'm just asking, because I just wanna make sure we're really clear.
Volleyball doesn't need wood.
It doesn't need wood, but what I'm asking for is, is this to the standard as for high school? Or is it a different type of flooring than what I just wanna be really clear, cause it's been so much, again, it's been so
I
much
know that
confusion on this project.
I'll check with our athletic director, but I checked in with him because I know they do many practices over at the elementary school, and they,
Practices for sure.
yeah.
Okay, but we don't know about official games. And there's not a full basketball court in that auditorium?
It's.
It's still in Maris?
I didn't hear.
It's a full court,
I
but
thought
it
it's
might
a
not be
full court.
regulation.
Oh, I see. So it might be, you may not be able to have official games because there's not enough on the side or something?
It could be, I don't know
We
for
don't
certain,
know?
but I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
There's
I-
two ends to it, but, you know, and hoops at both sides, but it may not be
All right.
Yeah.
regulation.
I think it would be good to have this information, because when we were doing the presentations to the community, we said different things. So we talked about it when it was fixed up, it could be used for that. So I just want to make sure that whatever the circumstance is, there's no surprise in 6 months or a year that how come we can't and no one told us, that's all.
Yeah.
So-
But I,
so
there,
let's just
I
find
think
out.
also the multiple activities that, like we see at the elementary school, where you shoot from morning program to PE classes, to then having, night events and having fifth grade graduation.
That's a lot of use for it.
Right, and it can sustain having chairs put on it, which I think hardwood, we'd be holding our breath all the time. Where that, routinely takes chairs, it takes a tremendous
Yeah.
beating, and
And
it
does
has.
the middle school, is that hardwood or is that an all-purpose? Because that has, we used to have a bunch of events there with chairs.
We did, and I was holding my breath every time we did that, because all you have to do is have one of those caps fall
Like,
off.
And then you scrapes the floor.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a
yeah.
regular hardwood floor, that's not a multi-purpose.
That really worries me when we do those events, yeah. But I'm still impressed with how sustainable it is at that elementary, that they do those morning programs every day, and they have chairs on it every day, yeah. I'm gonna ask our facilities planning person though, Dominic, you had the point,
Hi, sorry to like Dominic Lockhart, 200 Madison. So one of the issues that comes up with these courts is that when you practice on them, you kind of make do. Just like at home at Thanksgiving, you make do. But when you're having an event and it's a competition and there's a referee, you have a whole lot of other circumstances that you have to fulfill. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure if you match, that the height requirements are met in that gym to have a competition there.
Okay.
It'd be like, remember it's a sloping roof? I'm pretty confident you can't have a competition volleyball there, because I think you need at least 20 feet over the whole field, not really sure. And that likewise, I would suspect that basketball has a similar requirement, though maybe not as high.
Okay.
thank you, thanks, okay.
Jordana, do you want to continue?
So I think the last one was just so you've got the theatrical lighting and sound systems, which that's in the last slide for future considerations. So really, this Sage Hall potential improvements, when you start with front entry door replacement through the end of that slide, that's all kind of stuff that doesn't seem to have been in the scope of the future project slide, which is fine. I just think we need to kind of all understand that and know where was that, I guess, originally, because it seems like we're saving money in other areas, so maybe it's just, I just wanna make sure we're categorizing it right.
Well, and I think some of these are that safety and security that wasn't a big deal when this started, and then
Right.
Parkland changed our priorities.
Which is, yeah, exactly, so maybe it's just coming from that other bucket, but it's
Yeah.
not this phase 2 future project slide, which again, it's fine, I just think it's, when we're trying to compare apples to apples, we just need to know where it's all coming from.
That's what I'm challenged with. When I look at the previous presentations, it doesn't line up. The totals line up pretty well, it's just that the items aren't lining up, so it's kind of hard to have a sense of what we've done versus what was on the list.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that, like,
Well, it says front entry door, but in the first slide, he said they're doing doors, so is it a different front entry door, is it an upgraded front entry door?
We're doing all the doors going into the learning center, so if you ever look at,
Right, no,
so-
I understand
yeah.
that, but then this is as front entry door, that's a different door?
It's the doors into the auditorium,
The front entry door replacement for 40,000.
yeah, those are the doors going into the auditorium,
From the hall, not from the outside?
from the outside,
From the outside.
right? Is it also the other door that's entering, so
That
it's,
doesn't make sense.
Ed, it's the doors coming from the outside into the auditorium, and it's also the door coming from, the hallway into the auditorium as well, right?
Actually, the 40,000 just represents, coming from the outside into the auditorium.
Okay.
The doors that actually go from the hallway, from the learning center side, to the actual gymnasium, those are actually currently fire compliant.
Okay, okay.
So we're not in our current status replacing all the exterior doors, that would be an add-on in the gymnasium?
That's what the 40,000 is for, the doors coming from the outside in.
Right, is that
Ed.
separate from replacing all the other exterior doors?
Ed, if you could go back
Those
to
are part of the bond, the other doors.
your additional funds allocated to the Learning Center
Sure.
slide, I think this may be the question is, it says security door and fire safety door work for $273,680.
Yes, that's all on the learning center side.
So it's not the doors for the whole building.
No, correct.
No, those were, so we wanted to do all the, like the latching, like you know how I.
With the key, yep.
Yeah, yeah, so we had to do all the keying in, so those were specific.
The audio-visual system for 35,000,
Yes.
is that then the theatrical lighting and sound system? If we did that, is that instead of it, or is it we incur the 35,000 regardless?
No, actually, that's separate. The reason being is what we found in the past is it's best for groups coming in from the outside if they're renting the space or if there's community groups using the space, that there's kind of a simpler audio visual system for them to use, which basically constitutes a projector, screen, and a speaker system. The theatrical sound and lighting systems we found really should only be used by theatrical groups who are trained on the system because of the complexity of the systems.
So is this a good time to ask other questions? So I just want to rewind for a second, because I don't know if I completely understood something earlier. The auditorium, if we don't do phase 2, am I hearing that then the students who will be attending school in that building wouldn't be using it?
Wouldn't recommend them using it,
All right.
but they have a playground, they have a playroom.
I'm aware of that. That's a huge concern for me, because I don't ever remember in this process saying, you know, here's the money we've asked for, you've approved and we're spending and then we're good to go. But the students going there really can't use that big auditorium space. We don't feel good about it.
But something changed. We had Parkland, and then we have shootings every week. I mean, every week. I mean, more children and educators have been killed by guns right now than we've seen, you know, soldiers.
So then,
So things have dramatically, I wouldn't recommend it. I think they
so
can
that's
use
the
it as.
security then. So if we do the security stuff and nothing else in the ask, then you're saying it could be used by the students.
Yeah.
And so the additional security money is how much?
That would be the wired connectivity, the safety and security, the doors, because we have to wire the doors up.
PA system as well.
PA system.
So how much is the security, what's the total that's just security specific?
In the front door.
Oh, the front doors. I did say the door.
Because to me, that's the first question is, do we want to open a school where we're hearing that we can't, the students going there can't use the biggest indoor space? And to me, that's maybe separate than evaluating, do you do the whole list? And it is a little frustrating, because I hadn't heard that, hey, we may have to do this, and I think this is going to be a huge surprise for the community, that we have to spend extra money to be able to feel confident that the kids can access this. So I understand your concern, it's just that this is a new development.
Well, I've been real clear about my concerns about safety and security. That's why we spent the last 1.4 million. That was really targeted at safety and security.
No, I mean, I appreciate that we want to focus on safety and security. I'm just saying that this is new information that we're saying this big space won't be able to be used unless we spend more. So how much is the safety and security specifically out of the list?
If my math's right, I got 62,000.
Does that sound right?
I think you're missing something.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a little light.
I think it's more than that if it's going to be, you've got the wireless, right, for 5, the security cameras for 12, PA is 5,
40 for doors.
and 40,
And then the front doors.
front door replacement is 40, and then you said there was side doors,
Yeah.
and how much is that? That, is that on this list? I don't see it.
It was the later list.
Oh, the-
Press this question. You need to approve the night.
177.
I'm sorry?
We just need to vote on it at some point.
Yeah, because if you're adding 40 plus 40 is 80.
Alright, but we're not, this list doesn't include the doors going into the gymnasium from outside, right? That's just the front entrance
That
replacement.
is 40 right there.
But that's the front entry door replacement, unless I'm missing something?
Isn't that
Yes.
another 40
Yes.
under the?
Ed, is the $40,000 for both sets of doors
No.
coming in?
For both sets of doors at the front entry, the exterior set and then the interior lockdown set, yes.
So then that 40 would be enough for the doors, for the safety list, for the kids to be able to use the space?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part that you said. Could you repeat that?
How much do we need to spend on doors to have the safety doors in place as part of, let's just call it the safety initiative for that room, separate it from the whole list and say safety initiative. So I'm just trying to figure out how much that total is.
62.
I think as we were saying before, I think the 62,000 would do that.
Okay,
The audio visual system doesn't include that?
No, that's just mics and stuff.
okay.
Can I understand, what is the reasoning for recommending that we do a mechanical system repair now as opposed to the replacement? Is it because of the funds we have available, or is
Just
it?
cost, you know,
Magnitude of cost.
yeah, and our director of facilities felt like he could do it.
But I guess, how long do we think those repairs will last? Like, when are we gonna have to get a whole system replaced? Is it like a patch for a year, or is it a 10-year repair, or what are we talking
Well,
about?
let me add to that. The mechanical systems we're talking about are strictly just air conditioning at this point. So that's really kind of a luxury. If you want to have air conditioning in there, we can fix it. If you don't want to have air conditioning, we can choose to do it at a later date.
I think everyone's gonna want air conditioning. It's a question of just, are we repairing it or are we
But
replacing it?
We could either repair what we have there now, the existing stuff, or we can hold off to later on and do a whole complete new system with
Right.
fresh air intakes and the whole, everything that goes along with that. And that would be that bigger number that you were talking about earlier.
I think what Jordana might be concerned about is, so we put in the 75,000. I have the same
How
problem.
long will that last?
I have that problem with my furnace. I have these conversations all the time with my furnace guy. How long is my furnace gonna last? And he keeps telling me 7 years.
There's no guarantee, but,
Totally get that.
it's like putting a Band-Aid on it, or you can choose to spend more money, Yeah, we might get 10 years
Okay.
before we have to put more money into it.
Other questions from the board?
So if we do the 62, you'd feel comfortable with the children using the facility?
I wanna do all that.
No, I know you want, I know.
I'm not
but-
gonna tell you what you want me to, I'm not gonna be painted into a corner. I wanna do all that.
Katie, I'm not,
What's the
hold on,
minimum to
I'm not,
open up the gym?
hold on, I'm not trying to paint you in a corner. What you, hold on, what you said to.
60,000, I think it was 62,000, would take care of those safety initiatives.
Right. I'm not trying to pin you in the corner, I'm trying to figure out, is there, besides spending all this money, is there a less expensive way to know we have a facility that you feel, you're the superintendent, you need to feel comfortable that the kids can be in there from a safety perspective. I'm just trying to find out, can they use the space if we spend the 62,000? I can't answer that, so I'm looking to administration to give me
I
that
could
input.
sleep at night with those pieces done.
What about the asbestos that you said has to be removed?
It's right there, the only reason you have to remove the asbestos is if you pulled up the floor tiles. That's the only reason you have to do the abatement on that.
And we're already doing the roof replacement, right? We already approved that?
The what replacement? The
We'd
roof
have to do
replacement?
we'd have to just do the transfer of funds, that's all. Yeah,
But-
we've already found the funding for that, so we just have to do. the
I'm just
board.
saying, in terms of additional funding, we need to approve or provide you with the will of the board for sending. It would, like, that 165,000 has already been accounted for.
Right.
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 So it's really not 589,000 incrementally that we're actually being asked to give you the will of the board,
Unless-
is minus 165,000.
Yeah, do we still have that? We haven't spent that, have we? Oh, good, okay. So we haven't spent that, so, no, we can take that off.
And the roof needs to be replaced because it's kind of waiting for a bigger problem, right? That it's
The roof doesn't leak, it's the back, very flat roof that has a leak in it.
But
right?
we were replacing that. Okay.
Yes,
So then
that would be included in this.
Right, but
the
the pitched roof,
165.
then the pitched roof is good enough to stay the way it is, and it's just the back roof that's the problem?
It's the back roof which is included in this that is the problem. It's a very small roof over the stage. Right. Yeah, so the total then would be 424,062.
So if nobody else has clarifying questions, I'd like to move into board discussion. Just to kind of get a sense for where the board's at with respect to the items on the list, and just to kind of give a green light as to what we would give the go-ahead for and what we might say, no, let's save that for later date investment. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first. I am definitely all for ripping off the Band-Aid and getting this done so that it's not gonna drag on for years and everyone keeps saying, oh, well, now you need to replace this and now you need to replace that. So if we can actually afford it and transfer the funds, I would do, the Sage Hall potential improvement slide. But instead of the repairs for air conditioning, I'd wanna look into the full mechanical systems replacement and just find out a little bit more about, if we're gonna have Paul was just saying that might have an air filtration system. Is that going to improve the air quality for pre-K aged kids and daycare aged kids? I think that might be something that we might wanna kind of learn a little bit more about. And then if there's a big, advantage to doing a kitchen walk-in cooler and freezer at this time because of the construction timing, I'd be up for that. I think the rest we can wait on.
I agree with that, 100%. I'm not going to restate everything you said. I agree with you 100%. Your thoughts echo mine.
I'd like to see the auditorium get its full potential use, because that's important. I don't know if we have decided or discussed, I recall maybe a little bit, about making revenue or income out of that area there. But in order for that to be fully utilized, it's a space that needs to be done for that. So, the walk-in cooler down below, the kitchen, that doesn't really pertain to an interest that I would see.
Other board members?
In the October 2017 presentation, it did say that replacing the flat roof of the auditorium was part of the initial. So this is a clarifying question, but are we needing to approve additional money to do that? Because it was part of the October 2017 presentation as being part of the core project. So is that incorporated into this request?
That's part of the, and Ed, let me know if I'm correct, but that 165 for roof replacement includes that flat roof.
All right, because here it had estimated $32,371 of our original ask was going to be to do that. So was that removed just because?
I don't know. Ed, do you know why that wasn't included?
I'm sorry, guys, I couldn't hear that. Could you say that one more time?
So,
I have it here if
Chris
you want to
Tice
see
was
it.
pointing out that in your 12/2/17 presentation, sorry,
It was October 2.
the October presentation, October what date?
2.
October 2/17, you had the flat roof included in the project and in the bond portion of the project, and now it's included in future projects. In the 761 part of the roof replacement.
Well, actually, if you look back, you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so the auditorium flat roofing replacement that you see there, which this was not part of the bonded side of the project, if you recall. This was the future projects.
Oh,
That's the repair for just the back flat roof behind the gymnasium where the stage is for the leaking that was happening there.
okay.
So then what is this referring to? Because it says specifically replace flat roofing at auditorium.
Which one are you looking at? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I can turn the screen around, but I don't think you're gonna be able to see it. It's a slide from the October 2nd, 2017 presentation, and it said exterior building renovations. It's part of the original project. You know, replace gutters, clean masonry, replace classroom wing roofing, and right under that it said replace flat roofing at auditorium. So my question just simply was, it was part of the project, now it seems like it's an add-on, and I was just unclear why.
So it looked like by December 2nd, they had changed that and it had come out of the project. Because you clearly see it's, by December 2nd, it was not part of the project.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to understand why. That was the one meeting this year I had in December meeting. So anyway, so now it just seems like it's an add-on, it was part of the core project. Anyway, so to weigh in, I do think that if we have a leaking roof, that flat roof is leaking, it needs to be fixed, because that doesn't, like a cavity that doesn't get better, gets worse over time. You know, I'm hearing a lot of concern in the community about the amount of money that we're spending on Stella Maris. You know, in fact, the New York Civil Council has invited the candidates to speak tomorrow. One of the questions was, do you think we should have the community surveyed to see if they still want to move forward with this, or should they sell the building? So clearly there is some part of the community that's concerned about our spending, and so I think we'd all love to walk in there the first day and have it feel like the Ritz-Carlton of schools, and the fact that everything's beautiful and new. But I think we have to be really cautious about how much we spend, and maybe do it in a phased approach that the community can weigh in on and feels comfortable with. And while we have funds, reserve funds that we could roll over, you know, the more funds we have that we don't roll over to the next new project, theoretically, the less money we may have to tax them on the next time around. So from my perspective, I think we have to do the roof where it's leaking and the security issues, because I agree with you, Superintendent, that security is paramount, so that we can get our children in there from day one. And then I would suggest, I don't know if the Facilities Committee has been involved in the past 3 or 4 months with any of this stuff, since the last presentation the board saw, but you know, I think involving them in kind of the rollout and priorities, because they represent the community, would be a wise move. So that's my suggestion.
Other board members?
And do we know what the rollover funds available are gonna be at the end of the year?
Well, I know that.
That's important to me in making this determination.
We budgeted for $700,000 worth of tuitioning in, and we're over $1 million. And we have about 400,000 coming in transportation that we're not going to be able to put into our transportation fleet reserve, because we're already at that 2 million. The only thing we're going to be able to back out of that is roughly $180,000 out of that. So those funds are going to have to go someplace. So those are our revenues that have come in. I can't use those revenues because I would be spending more than taxpayers have voted on. So right there, we have about $700,000 in revenues.
Or we could roll that over to a future project.
Yeah, well, it gets tricky. You can put those into a capital reserve, you can put those into a repair reserve, and then you can have a capital vote on that. Or you could have, if it's something that's truly a repair, because that is our building, you could do that. But it gets a little tricky because it starts looking a little capital-like, and probably Ed can help me a little bit more on that. So you could put that into one of those reserves, but then you're blossoming into a project when you have children now in the building, and that's my concern.
But you could go to a vote for the taxpayers to decide if they want to
They
spend
could.
that additional money on the building.
You could, yeah,
I mean, that's,
yeah.
What are your thoughts, Brian?
I don't know, I think, you know, I think the district decided to buy this building. I think we should do what's necessary for security purposes to allow the building to be open for the use of children. And I think beyond that, you know, I think maybe the community sentiment has changed on Stella Maris, and there should be a vote on the additional capital improvements at a later date.
Alex?
I agree with Jordana. I think that these things, you put them off, they always end up being more expensive. And so I'd rather see us fix them now. So I would agree with Jordana's position.
I would also just say that, you know, I've seen the community getting tired with this project, as you say, Chris, right? That people are frustrated. I think those same people that are sharing their frustrations on Facebook are not only sharing frustrations regarding cost, but also the timing. They're like, it's taking too long, right? They're complaining about everything. So I'd be all in for finishing it. And that way we as a board can stop focusing on Stella Maris and start focusing more on other things, like, you know, a lot of the other educational priorities that we all probably would prefer to be focusing on.
And I also agree with Susan. If we can get the Sage Hall up to where it should be, then I see it as a revenue generator. Real estate in this town is not cheap, and it's a nice space. We can make it a nice space, and we can rent it out. So that could be another way to bring in more revenue, similar to the work that you've been doing with the shared services and
Right.
tuitions and everything else. So I kind of feel like if we put that off, we're almost missing out on some opportunity for rental, right? So renovate your kitchen, you can rent out your house, you'll capture that money back. And I feel like if we do the walk-in freezer now, when it makes more sense, and then as those revenues come in, we can look at this theatrical lighting and things like that based on who's utilizing the space, that sort of thing, and use that revenue to do those future projects. But I do think we need to get it up to a certain bar that's a little bit higher than just, it's safe, but something that we can be proud to rent out.
And I have to tell you, as a person who's 9 months and counting, I'm adding to my workload. Like, I really could be, like, I'm making a recommendation to make my life so much harder. I really could be, like, being like, nah, you know, I just could. So, when I told my family I was working on this presentation, they're like, Mom, what is wrong with you? And it's just, you know, I want to do right by this community. They did vote for this, and, you know, I think it's the right thing to do, and I just don't know what's wrong with me. I just don't.
You're glutton for punishment, that's what.
Glutton for punishment.
Go ahead.
Just one other comment. I think it's also, in general, if you're doing a renovation, it's better to do everything at once. And when you put things off, it's disruptive to do any of these things after the building's already open, and it tends to cost more when you do things separately. So it's another reason I think the extent that is necessary. I think explain why it is better to do it at once than do it now. And the rental point is a very good point.
One other question I have, the kitchen aspects of Stella Maris, is that at all going to make it any more likely that there'll be box lunches going to the elementary school?
I don't think so. I don't. And you know, it's funny, our facilities director and I had that conversation, and a lot of districts have gotten to the point where they have a hub, and the hub does send out to other areas. But we have such a strong human connection with our 6th through 12th graders and our cafeteria staff that it would break my heart to lose that connection. Like, if you ever go down to the cafeteria, the children come in, get their lunches, and they really give so much feedback to our cafeteria people that I'd hate to have them at a hub where they're not interacting with our children and sending the food out. And I think our facilities director is working very closely now with the cafeteria staff on what their needs are and how to retrofit downstairs to really meet their needs. And we are starting in June the trial basis for the lunches going over to the elementary. So we're going to get really good feedback, we hope, from our 5th grade parents and students, so that can get implemented for 4th and 5th grade for next year, and then expand that. So I think that having, you know, been a health and home economics teacher and worked so closely with food lunch programs, and my degree in clinical dietetics, you have to hear from your customer. And I think that feedback is so critical to have it downstairs and not and a satellite spot.
So are you not seeing this walk-in as such a high priority, or would that be?
I think it's really smart to do the walk-in right now, only because I worked on so many construction projects, and I know exactly what our facilities person is saying, is when we close everything up, right now, everything's wide open, and they can just bring that in, and they can do the flooring, they can run the wiring, they can run all of that now, while everything's wide open. So smart.
Can I
It's
add to
really
that,
smart.
Kate?
Yes.
The reason why I want to have it done now is that the condensers are located on the roof, and they're piped in from the roof all the way down to the basement area. And it makes a lot of sense to do it now when the walls are opened up versus later on, where now you have a problem. How am I getting up there? You know, you either gotta go outside and chase up the side of the building, or, you know, so it makes, and then when the guy's doing the floor, you have the unit in place, you just tile right up to the walk-in box. You're not gonna have gaps in the floor. There's several reasons why, but it really makes a lot of sense to do it now.
Any other discussion? So, I think I'd like to make a motion that, we authorize the administration to move forward on everything on the Sage Hall potential improvements, less the mechanical system repairs, so that we can revisit, the repairs versus the replacement, at a future meeting with a little bit more information, just to vet that a little bit more, so that we can make that decision separately.
I'm sorry, Dan, did you say accept the mechanical system?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because one of Jordana's points was, do we want to put a Band-Aid on it that might last 10 years, or do we want to completely replace the system? I think that is a little bit more debatable in my mind, so I just want to set that aside for a minute, and give the green light on the rest of that list.
So it would be the 75,000 that comes out?
Correct.
So that brings it
And
down.
the 165.7, because that was somewhere else, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
so that brings it down to 348,239 plus 75,000.
And,
Plus
and
75?
Plus if you bring in the 75 for the walk-in.
Well, let's hold off on the
Okay,
walk-in for a
okay,
second.
okay,
Let's
deal with
just
that.
do that
Okay.
348 and just see how the board feels about that, and then we'll talk about the walk-in.
Okay, great.
Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you.
So the walk-in isn't on this list though?
Correct.
It was on the
It's
lower
just
list.
this slide less mechanical repairs.
I think the idea is we'll have a separate vote on the
Walk-in.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Okay, that is, 4 yes,
Opposed?
2 opposed, Chris Tice and Brian DeSessa opposed. Motion passed.
Thank you. Let's talk about the walk-in. Do you guys want to authorize the walk-in? Anybody want to make a motion to authorize the walk-in?
I'll move to authorize the walk-in cooler and freezer. I think it makes sense to do this while the walls are open and ceiling's open.
I'll second the motion. Discussion?
In terms of the walk-in cooler and freezer, is this something that our current cafeteria function and staff really needs for them to do what they're doing right now? Or is this to install it for a future use that we may not need for a good period of time if we're not looking to have that kitchen be a hub for our lunch program?
It's for future.
So it's not something that has a need right now?
No.
Okay.
We have had people contact the district about leasing the space for, commercial kitchen use. So, there's definitely,
But then I would assume that you, with many of those inquiries, they would expect to have a commercial stove to use the kitchen from a commercial
Right.
standpoint, so.
right, which we do, we'll have a hood and a stove in, and we'll have a sink, and this would be, then we'd
So
have
we'll have a
walk-in.
commercial, okay. Because I thought it was fitted for commercial stove, but.
So Ed, can you,
I'm
can you
confused.
review again what's in the kitchen when it's gonna be completed right now?
Are we talking about, you mean as part of what the project is going on right now?
Yes, yeah,
So there'll be the required fire safety hood over one stove unit has actually an oven in it and a range piece. And as part of that fire system, there's an Ansel system in the hood with the proper ventilation. And then also included will be a sink that's there.
So is that one stove? I'm not a big cook, so forgive me. Is that one stove like a commercial stove?
Yeah,
Okay, so if someone was gonna rent it out for an event, the kitchen would be fitted enough with that stove and this walk-in cooler and freezer to use?
that's tough to say.
It's gonna be missing a lot.
It depends a lot on what you're planning.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be,
No,
So it's,
they're gonna be missing,
it's gonna be missing a lot of stuff.
okay, yeah, I'm just asking because I don't want
but I
anybody to
don't,
get
I
any
don't,
misperception.
I wanted to make sure you knew there's gonna be pieces in there.
Okay.
And if we install this walk-in, all this appliances downstairs and it sits, it's stale, can that be positive or negative? You know, if you install it and then don't use it, what's that impact?
Where you're running
Am I
it with
missing?
nothing in it, and it's costing you money to not use.
Yeah, I mean,
Assuming you're running it.
keeping it cold.
You don't have to run it.
Well, okay,
So in the future considerations for Sage Hall slide, where we talk about additional kitchen equipment costing $350,000, so what is that equipment then?
Do you wanna run through what that equipment is, Ed?
Yeah, that's actually quite an extensive list. It would basically take the kitchen area and outfit it as a fully functional commercial kitchen. You can actually scratch bake and scratch cook food. So basically, it involves chef's tables, equipment racks, multiple convection ovens, in addition to multiple sink areas. So there's a full list of equipment that basically it would allow someone to come in and do all of their food prep there and all of their actual cooking there for a commercial production of food.
I think for me, this, again, falls in the line of it could, down the road, be a revenue generator, and it'll be more expensive if we wait, to Alex's point. So this particular item, while the walls are open and everything's open, makes sense to me.
Yeah, I guess the other question I had is, so if it's gonna cost $75,000 now with everything open, it would be good to estimate how much it would cost later on with everything closed. Like, is it a doubling? I mean, I know that's a hard thing to just kind of
hypothetical.
hypothetical, but I think, is it a $20,000 or a tripling of cost because you're opening a bunch of ceilings and walls, you know?
Maybe we can get more information on it.
Yeah, does this piece of it need to be decided tonight, or should we get some information, and is the next meeting, which is June what? June 3rd, is that early enough for you to get feedback?
I'm looking at Tim. You know,
In terms of
timing?
production and what these guys are gonna do to prep that area and get it ready, now's the time to do it. I have, those guys there, and that's, now's the time to do it. I don't know what the cost will be, but it's gonna be a lot more than a typical first floor kitchen to put all the coolers and all that stuff in after the fact, because
The condensate lines that have to be put in.
that, and this is in the basement, so to get that cooler and to walk in the basement after all that stuff is assembled and all the walls are up and all that stuff is in place, I double that would be probably conservative.
The freezer section, because it's an insulated floor, is sunk into the concrete, just to let you know. So that's why I'm telling you, it's better to do it now, because then everything's fitted around
For
it.
roof perforations, all kinds of, he's right in that sense. I'd just interject real quick from my standpoint, that if you do this stuff now, further down the road, just the abatement part of it, and that part of it is to deal with the logistics of around the kids and functions and stuff going on in school. that for my kids to go in there, and I get the locks and the doors in terms of security wise, but I'd be reluctant to send my kids in with the floors the way that they are, and the, you know, just the condition. I mean, yes, you can go in there, and they can play, and it's passable, but you do it next year, the cost is gonna be, you know, I don't know how much more, but it's certainly gonna be more with storing stuff and moving kids around and trying to figure out a schedule to get it done.
Other discussion? Go ahead, Alex.
I think we should do it now. I know we're all trying to be mindful of cost, and that's what we should be doing. But we're talking about a place that's torn open right now and under renovation, and again, put these things off and have them done when the place is open and the kids are in there already. If it's anything that we're either going to do or likely to do, we should do it now. It's gonna be more expensive and much more disruptive to do it later. That's always been my experience.
Other discussion?
I'm just, again, logically, it makes sense to be upgrading and having a facility that is kind of nicer and more complete. My big concern just is this is above and beyond what we ask the taxpayers permission to spend on it. And I'm just worried that we've not given the right amount of time to hear from them, that they're still supportive of us spending above and beyond that. That's my big concern. And even though we can transfer money from one line to another to cover it, it still means it's money that wouldn't be used for something else. So I get the construction side. I'm in real estate. I know when the walls are open, that's the cheapest time to do it. But it's not my house. It's the community's house. It's not my money. It's the community's money. So that's why I'm concerned just about doing this without, I think, maybe giving you proper time to get feedback.
Hang on one sec. Did you guys want to chime in on the kitchen?
It's
Walk-in?
just a walk-in, right?
Yeah, just the walk-in. Go ahead, Alex.
I just want to respond to Chris's comment. It's the community's money, but the community put us in this position, expects us to exercise our independent judgment as to what is best for the district. And if every time we have to make a difficult decision, we're going to turn around and ask for some sort of referendum or feedback, I don't think that is an effective way for us to make decisions. So I think, in my opinion, it is best for us to do this now, and it would be penny wise and pound foolish as well as disruptive to put off construction work that we are likely to do until after the school is already open and there's already children in the building, as well as it sounds like a potential to miss out on some rental opportunities. So I think the more we flesh this out, it makes a lot more sense to do it now.
Any other discussion?
I would just add to what Alex is saying, that this also makes it even more accessible to the community, right? So it's the community piece of the building. So it's being pound-wise instead of penny foolish, but also giving it right back to making it more accessible to a larger portion of the community as opposed to just the students.
Any other discussion on the floor?
Now, Chris had said, I think I heard Ryan and Katie talking, moving one item line from one line to another line. Do we, the money that's been sitting from one line and moving to another line, has that money been sitting for 2 years, 3 years?
This
6
is
months?
revenue from this year that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Okay, so I have 4 yes.
Opposed?
2 no. I have Chris, Tice, and Brian DeSessa opposed.
All right.
Motion
So-
carries 4-2.
Thank you. So if we could just get a little bit more context for a further discussion on the mechanical system, we'll give you that answer at the next meeting.
Okay.
Could we, while we have our great partner in the room with us, technically in the room with us, can we just get an update on timing?
And the last thing we're gonna do is give timeline, because that's, on the Stella Maris.
Yes, and we talked before, so basically, the project is still on our initial timeline of turnover of the building to the district in August. We did have some manufacturing delays on a couple components. The elevator had a manufacturing delay, so it will not be installed until September. However, the educational wing can open and is handicap accessible based on the exterior modifications that we're making. So we're making entrances at both sides of the building handicap accessible.
Any other questions?
Well, just the piece, that's great news. So it sounds like we can open it on schedule for beginning of next school year.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. So that's wonderful.
There is a caveat to whoever we lease the daycare, they have to obtain approval for the daycare spaces. We can't do that for them, because they have to go through the Office of Child and Family Services, correct, Ed?
Yes, correct. As part of the overall umbrella of Office of Governmental Services in New York State. So that is all run actually by whoever the daycare provider will be, and that has to be done after the completion of the building. It can't be done beforehand.
Okay, any other questions?
I would just request that between now and opening, we have a couple more updates, because this is actually, we heard a lot of good news tonight, but I think it's helpful for the board. I mean, the last time we saw a presentation was in January, and the public. So just more regular communication between now and opening would be fabulous.
So I'm just going to introduce everybody once again to Tim Bowker, who is, Tim, if you could just say hello, and he's your title is officially construction manager for the project. Sometimes they have other titles, and he is on site.
I have a bunch of hats.
Yeah, and he's running it, so he'll be providing regular updates to the board on how things are.
I'll come as often as you'd like me to come, give you an update.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, so I think we can release, unless anybody has any other questions for Ed, can we release our architect?
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed, thanks,
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
all very much.
Excellent. Anything else for the superintendent's report, or we move on to the
I think
principals?
we're moving on.
All right.
And, Mr. Nichols, I put yours at the very end, your presentation on the academic support. So you're gonna go through your slides, and then yours is at the end, so you'll come back up again.
Actually, you want me to go now?
No, I have it at the very end, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but he's still up.
Yeah, but you're still up first, I'm sorry.
You were right.
There we go.
He's bookending the presentation.
He's bookending the
Right,
presentation.
he opens and
exactly.
closes. He's the closing
Hi,
out.
everyone. I don't think this is redundant, but I'll just go over some past events. We had spring recess, the Italy trip that Mr. Solo led was a tremendous success. National Honor Society induction, had an especially big class this year. We're in the midst of the advanced placement international baccalaureate exams. Mr. Guyan's coordinating that. We had a conversations with administrators meeting this past Friday. Mr. Fisher. There we go. The AP and IB exams are continuing. The Pops concert the 21st. A lot of concerts there. Memorial Day vacation. End of May, baccalaureate, which is the opportunity for graduating seniors to recognize those people in their lives who helped them arrive at this transition point, is the 3rd. Academic awards, which is our Academy Awards, is the 6th. Prom is the 7th at the Greek Church in Southampton. And the 6 through 12 band concert on the 11th. Ms. Carriero, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Well,
All right, I'll go quick. I'll just touch on some big items. The garden party, which was eventful, is our garden club advisors, Mr. Frazier and Mr. Rainey. They started to create a garden in the courtyard, which is awesome. So they planted some strawberries and some straw bale, and they planted some lettuce and broccoli in those big garden bins created by Mr. Maloney and his classes. We had a successful middle school orientation with our incoming sixth graders for next year, our current fifth grade parents. The middle school chorus concert was amazing, led by Miss Nicoletti, and then, as Mr. Nichols talked about, the conversations happened on last Friday. This week, our eighth graders are gearing up to go to DC. They were all excited. They might be trying to finalize their rooms right now, but they are excited to go. Our orchestra concert for our middle and high school on the 22nd. The Frost Valley trip, yes, it is one of the unused snow days. It starts on there. We already booked it, so the kids will have to leave the 28th. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but if there is, obviously email me. New York State Science 8 exams, these are the kids that do not opt into taking the Regents level courses in 8th grade, so there is, just like the math and ELA exams for 8th grade and 4th grade, there are science exams. And then 7th grade's going to Boston, the 3rd through the 5th, and our Science 8 teacher, Miss McCabe, has a great relationship with the Brookhaven Lab, and they're going on a field trip on 6/6, and then the band concert. Here are just some pics of orientation. We did breakout rooms again, led by the suggestion of Mr. Guiney, who started it, and then I copied him from the high school orientation. Those are our teachers down below, and then our students, led by Miss DiNapoli, facilitating to get the middle school experience. Our chorus singing, that is our 6th grade chorus currently. There's a lot of girls in buns because there was a dance recital going on at the same time, but they made it to the concert on time. And then this is our garden, which is pretty awesome. Small but steady wins the race, so they're making progress, which we're excited about. And Mr. Frazier and Mr. Rainey are extremely dedicated. Mr. Malone, you're up. Yeah, right there. Of course.
Good evening, everybody. Let's see, some past events. We wrapped up the math testing early in May. That was for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Students in the middle school also participate in that math testing. And you may have heard a little bit about the past week at the elementary school. We went screen-free in the building. Really a response to conversations both amongst the faculty and the parent population about children and screen use, both in school and at home. And we thought it would be interesting to, one, see how we would handle not using screens. So.
And I want to let you know how difficult that was for me and the administrative team, because we're used to texting Mr. Malone. He's like, I'm not using my phone.
I left my phone in the truck the whole week. Yeah.
So, and we kept forgetting. And like, Dr. Beers and I were like, have you gotten a hold of Matt? Have you gotten a hold of Matt? He's like, no, he hasn't.
My phone was on.
So we had
The
to
desk
call him on
phone
a
was on,
landline.
so-
I was like,
So people used a landline
our whole
more
routine was off for that week. I was like, geez, we're gonna have to, so I started walking over to
think-
the elementary.
I think it was, it was definitely interesting, challenging at times. Overall, the response was that, I think both amongst the children and the adults, that I think by the end of the week, we realized that balance is just essential. You know, we need the technology, it really helps us in many ways, but there are many examples where we lean to the technology too often and find ourselves mindlessly staring at a screen. So it was interesting, and I really want to give a big thank you to the faculty and staff, and also the PTA. Everyone collaborated to provide some great alternative activities, starting in the morning, throughout the day, and then after school. So everybody really got into it and did a great job. We're in our performing arts show season. We had our first graders share their show last week. And then very exciting, on Thursday the 9th, we actually did, even though the children have been using our field and track for about, since we got back for break, on the 9th we did a grand opening event, and we invited families to come down. Board members came, Mrs. Graves was there to help us cut the ribbon, and we had an inaugural run around the track. So it was a great afternoon. And here's just some wonderful pictures of happenings. This is that beautiful tree. I believe it was a gift from Miss Fell. She decorated the tree on the lawn. It's our musical theater doing Wizard of Oz. Some great field trips that are happening both by a bus and walking around town. thanks to Ms. Kola for our Earth Day presentation. And I do, this far right, the bottom right corner, we have a 5th grader, Sabrina McManus, put this whole environmental awareness project together. And she presented at morning program. She actually created these little discs that she then went with her parents and planted around the East End on walking trails. And if children find the discs, they turn them over, and it then leads them to her website, and they can learn about endangered species. This is from a 5th grader.
That's awesome.
Pretty amazing. Some great work happening in the garden. Some of the classes are building some signs. This is Mr. Reed's class. Actually using drills and hand tools and really getting into it. A beautiful garden space. It's a great time of year, in spite of the rain. This is a 4th grade Colonial America project that they got involved in. There's some pictures of the color run. Oh, the PTA actually gifted shirts to all the children, so everybody had these nice colorful shirts on that day. That was great. I think they'll use them again for field day when we get to the end of June. And then upcoming, as I mentioned, a lot of the great performances. Our big open house is on Monday the 20th, and that's at 6:30 p.m. and all are invited to that event. We're going to have a Memorial Day presentation, a gift from the Ladies Auxiliary here in Sag Harbor. They're going to come on the 23rd, and then that evening is our spring concert, and our kindergarten classes are very busy getting ready for their kindergarten show, which is on the 7th of June. Question?
Yes, can I just share one thing? When I was at the ribbon cutting, I heard from a community member that there were 2 elderly community members using the track on the weekend. And we were talking about how that track is the only track in Sag Harbor Village, in the entire village. And how wonderful it is that the community can come and use it as well recreationally, because the more the community can take advantage of the facilities, just the more connected and supportive they're going to be.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah,
great.
it's a great space.
Scott, was there I thought Mary put a video in of that. Was that in there?
Oh, the video, you know what?
It didn't work?
It was glitchy, so
Oh, all right, okay, no, that's fine, that's fine.
You could probably put it on the site.
I'll put it on the site.
It was, I took it out.
I'm not telling Mary.
It's not there.
I'm not telling Mary.
I'll call Mary tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few things that we've been working on, a couple things we want to do in the future. Over the Easter break, we had worked on the elementary school multi-purpose court. They came in and repaired some paint that was peeling and bubbling up. That was all done under warranty, so that was no cost to us. The grounds crew have been busy over there getting the grounds in shape for the fun run and the open house that's on May 20th. Some pictures of the guys planting some flowers. Also, over the break, we had some major roof construction done, which I was happy to have done during that week because it really didn't impact the school at all. They had to rebuild, if you look at that corner of the roof there, the left picture, they basically had to rip everything down to the decking and replace all that wood on the edges there, and they did quite a bit of sections up there. And they did a great job. They got it done on time. There was really no issues. They were clean. We're very happy with them. And that was done from the blow-off that we had during the winter. That was, pretty big job. That also didn't cost us any money other than $5,000 insurance deductible. So I'm happy to have that finally done. We've had some issues with on warm days we're shutting off the heat and we're getting leaks. So a lot of leaks. I don't know where they're all coming from, but everything's contracting and we're getting leaks. So over the shutdown, I had Best Climate in here. They fixed a lot of them, not all of them. This Saturday, I believe we're going to be doing a few more. So there's some issues with that. caught up with them. The other issue I know is impacting the community right now is the basketball court. I know I stated out in public already, I ordered everything, but I just wanted to remind you. I ordered the padding for the poles, the bottom of the backboard padding. I ordered acrylic court paint to resurface the asphalt, and black paint and primer for the painting of the backboards and poles. So some of those started already, but it's just been raining, if you haven't noticed, at every opportunity. And I really need a stretch of dry weather to do that kind of work out there, so we're working on it. The other thing I would like to do that's coming in a few weeks, hopefully, is there's a section of flooring that the tile's all lifting, it's cracking, it's not very safe. And there's stair treads that go up from the second floor landing down to the back outdoor exit. There's a stairwell there. The treads are really worn away, they're cracking, it looks terrible, and so I'm scheduling to have that repaired, replaced. The other thing that was done was the two-way video intercom door release system was installed. So now whoever monitors that lobby desk has the capability to unlock both gym entrances, the lobby, and the entrance going out to the parking lot at PPS. So they can see whoever's at that entrance. The people can push a button and communicate. So if somebody can't come to the lobby for some reason, or a handicapped person that needs to get in at a different entrance. It's also great for the activities at night. If you can buzz somebody in, or a team coming back. So far, so good on that.
Or to redirect somebody to come in.
Or do that, right. Redirect them to the lobby so they come in the main entrance, which is really what they should be doing. Okay, this is the other thing I've been working on. I'm in the process of having a free commercial energy audit done to identify energy efficient upgrade opportunities for our school buildings. These include LED lighting. There's an LED lighting program actually from anything east of the Shinnecock Canal that all the school districts can take advantage of at this point. They'll come in and pretty much pay for the whole project, replacing all the fluorescent lights with LEDs. It really would be great for us to do that because they are pretty much maintenance free once they're done. They use a lot less electricity, and overall they're better for the environment. So they reduce maintenance costs because those bulbs last for years and years and years, unlike fluorescent where you're constantly changing, and there's no more ballast involved. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's something I'd like to have done. That's it. Good night. Any questions?
Thank you.
Long list.
Wow, good job.
Busy. Keep busy.
Good evening, everybody. For the athletics update tonight, we have a picture. We had the News 12 Scholar Athlete. This is 2 years in a row. Katie Nealon received it for her outstanding soccer career as well as her basketball career. So they came out and presented her with a $1,000 scholarship. As again, Will Martin got it last year, so it was kind of nice to have this honor 2 years in a row.
It was so cool to see the news team out here. I got to meet them.
She's very poised. She's good.
Well, it's the sports broadcaster that did the interviewing, right?
Gotcha. Kevin
Yeah.
Mahar, I might be saying his last name incorrectly. He came out and he just happened to be heading out to East Hampton, so we kind of put them both on the same day. And I knew about this all the way back in January when I told the news crew was going to come out to film the game. So I told them just to, why is News 12 here? I said it's just going to be a big game. So, and they came out and it was, they got some footage, but it was a tremendous accomplishment. As we all know, Katie was only the third female in school history to accomplish the 1,000-point mark in basketball. We're really winding down here. I'm I'm gearing more towards next year. So we have less than 40 contests remaining in the school year. That doesn't, I know that sounds like a lot, but it's not. About 2 more weeks of contests, maybe 3 at the middle school level, and then we'll be moving right into our summer stuff. So a lot of pictures. Most of them were taken on the 2 or 3 days when the sun actually shined. You know, varsity baseball. Bottom right-hand corner, we had a young man, Ben McLean, who won his age group for the high school age group in the Hamptons half marathon this weekend. Did an excellent job. We also have our softball and baseball teams highlighted up above that. We have a couple pictures of senior day, girls track. That's our girls golf team. Some more softball. We have our middle school tennis team, our JV girls softball teams in the bottom, our varsities up on the top. Upcoming dates, June 3rd, sports physicals. And we also have another date on June 10th. Last year we only were able to get 1 date. This year we were able to get 2. I think the parents as well as the athletes should really utilize this. It lets you go into the summer without having to give up a day at the beach or a day at work, and you can just get it done, and then there's no paperwork problems going into August. June 13th, the Varsity Athletic Awards ceremony is going to be in the elementary school gymnasium this year. We decided to move it over there for several reasons: parking, air conditioning, large audiovisual screen, and it has the capacity to hold 400 people. I thought we would give it a try this year, and I think it's going to work out really nice. So, and Mr. Fisher. Thanks.
Good evening. I just wanted to point out some of the communications steps that we're taking. With the new website, it's not so new anymore, I suppose. I'm hoping you're seeing an increase in communications, notifications, becoming more aware of things that are taking place in and around the school district. In particular, we were able to post the Meet the Candidates video from the other night, as well as the Pearson's Got Talent event from the PTSA, and we were able to send notices out using what's called the live feed feature of the new website. So everybody should be being kept up to date on things that are going on. Even today, for example, a live feed went out announcing the middle school literary art magazine that's now available online. So we're trying to keep everybody up to date and aware of all the things that are taking place in and around our schools. With regard to safety and security, the one big thing I wanted to mention is I've mentioned previously that we were going to be doing this, so we've actually gone through with it now, and we've upgraded to a new version of the security system that we have here. There are going to be significant improvements as a result of this. It will also accommodate all the additional cameras that we're going to be adding over at the Sag Harbor Learning Center when those come online. And included with this is also a much better mobile app that our security personnel and anybody that we grant access to will be able to use as they move around the facility. So right now we have both systems running concurrently for a month, and that's just to make sure that we retain our data for a month because the system holds a month worth of data. So at the end of a month, the new system will have a full set of backup data, and then we'll make the cutover. I'm not sure what that last line is about.
Oh,
but
that was me, the intercom system that enhances security.
Oh, that was what Paul spoke about, okay.
But that, you get credit for that too.
Yeah,
It's a team effort.
That's all Paul. Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to mention is the training will be taking place this week with my staff. We're going to do a turnkey training so that we can then turn around and train others that are going to be using the system. So once the system is fully in place and everybody's been trained, then we'll make the cutover completely. Just quickly, instruction. I worked briefly with the history department here, with the teachers in the history department. They expressed an interest in exploring the possibility of moving to more ebooks and more web-based resources. So I met with the teachers. Then just last week we brought in a representative from Pearson so that he could demonstrate all of the offerings that they have available through all of the Pearson companies. Pearson is a very large company. They go with lots of different names, so it's not just Pearson. And the teachers actually seemed very interested in exploring it. So we have 2 of the teachers who are now doing a trial with what's left of this school year, and we have 2 other teachers that were given access just to explore all of the available systems. So hopefully we can determine before the school year is over, and if we're going to move in that direction. For the new school year, we can make those changes over the summer, so we're just headed in that direction. I'm sorry, anybody have any questions?
Scott. Actually, I don't know if this is a Scott question or not. Okay, you want me to save it to the end? Okay. I wasn't sure if it would be for you or for a facilities question, but at the end of last year, I don't know if you guys remember, we had a heat spell, which is incredible to even think we'll have another one since it's raining and 43 degrees out. But we had several days last year where some of the classrooms got extraordinarily hot, and we had talked about, at that time, we had parents come and complain about it. We said, you know, we kind of have a litmus test for if a room's too cold, you can't be in there, but we really hadn't said that if a room's too hot. And some people were posting like 88 degrees, you know, all these kind of crazy temperatures in the room. So I just, as we get into June, if the sun comes out and it warms up, I would just suggest that and I don't know if it's a technology thing or a facilities thing, but we think proactively about how we address that, because there were a lot of complaints last year on a handful of days that were incredibly uncomfortable for staff and for students.
I just want to add to that, whatever rooms had air conditioners in last year have been installed already for this
Okay.
year. So what rooms we're talking about, I don't know at this point, but as they come up, I'll look into them, see what we do about it.
Thank you, Scott. Madam President, Superintendent Graves, members of the board, fellow administrators, and the community. Just a brief update on the business department. And so working with our audit committee, one of the charges that we received with last year's audit and part of our correction action plan is to put out requests for proposal to meet with an internal auditing firm to review our internal operations. We've received 3 proposals, vetted them, contacted the audit committee, and we're looking at some dates and where that we can meet to convene and invite these 3 responders in and have an opportunity to talk with them, review their proposals and their pricing, and then make a recommendation to the board. It's important that we do this before June 30th because it's a type of thing that's got to be done during this school year in conformance with the correction action plan. So I'm very confident that will occur. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank my entire business department for all the hard work they performed, working closely with me and the staff and helping with the structuring of the 2019-20 adopted budget and all the PowerPoint presentations. There's no way I could have done it without them, and I want to recognize all of them. Wonderful team. Also, we work very closely with our claims auditor, who's been here for years, in revamping the timing and the checklist that we recently created when reviewing both our biweekly payroll and benefits to ensure compliance with our corrective action plan. This is a new item that our auditors asked us to put a focus on. Having had the opportunity of serving as a claims auditor many years ago, it enabled me to work with our current claims auditor, and we put some checklists together and did some revisions, and I think we're moving forward very well. And just wanted to mention to the board and the community that we're also working with Finance Manager and Eastern Suffolk BOCES in anticipation of our May conversion to our new accounting software that Superintendent Grace has talked about previously, called Envision. And in fact, our training is scheduled for next week, May 21st, May 22nd, May 23rd. We'll be down for a little bit of time, and then we hope to have the full new software up and operational in the beginning of June. Also, I've been working closely with our Assistant Plant Facilities Administrator and IBI Group, whom you heard from earlier this evening, and the vendors on the bidding documents and the contracts for the renovations associated with the Sag Harbor Learning Center. And I also wanted to mention to the board and to the community that we recently received high praise from the Department of Transportation. We were notified several months ago that we were selected for an internal audit of our transportation department, and in particular what's called our 19A compliance, which ensures that all of our bus drivers are properly licensed and trained, and there's an inspection of all our entire fleet. They review our maintenance records, our service records, the mileage records, the fleet itself, and we did outstandingly well. There were no deviations, no complaints, no violations, no citations. They commended us, and I want to take this opportunity to recognize our lead driver, Maud Stevens, and her entire team for a job well done. The last thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, and this was just approved last month with the New York State budget. New York State recently approved legislation for all school districts in New York State to create and fund a teachers' retirement contribution reserve sub-fund with the 2020 fiscal budget that they approved. Now, if we wanted it, our board would be required to pass a resolution authorizing the establishment of this reserve fund for the purpose of financing retirement contributions for employees in the teachers' retirement system. Once this reserve is established, the district can pay a maximum of 2% of the total compensation of all its teachers into that sub-fund annually, but at no point can the total of the sub-fund exceed 10% of the compensation of all the district's teachers. Now, we've drafted such a resolution that was reviewed by our school attorney, and we will be submitting that to the board at the June 17th meeting. And this would be another retirement reserve. We don't have to fund it. It's something that we would have if the board wants it. It doesn't require public approval. And because presently, as you're probably aware, we have an employees reserve system fund in place, retirement fund. This would be a sub-fund of that, so that we can put reserves in for both our employees, regular employees of clerical, custodial, and also for the teachers with this fund. So I've taken and structured a draft, and I'll be submitting that to the board for review and action for next month. And that's my report. Thank you.
While we're waiting for Mr. Nichols to come up and go through these slides, I just also want to add congratulations to the nominees and honorees for the winners that were announced for the East End Arts Teenie Awards ceremony, which is a really great date if you want to go. It's in the afternoon of June 9th. They changed schools, and this year it's going to be at Southold. It's great to see all the performances. They do it like the Tony Awards, so you get to see little pieces of all the musicals and bits from the musicals on the East End of Long Island, and it's just great to see all our kids. But we had 20 students nominated or honorees, which I think is just an extraordinary number. I think our kids, and 13 the musical was the Judge's Choice Award this year, so they've already been honored with that. So on that really positive note, I'm handing it over
All right.
to Mr. Nichols.
So the background here, at least as I understand it, was that the Board of Education wanted the administration to look into possible solutions to address the fact that students and coaches were missing academic support or portions of academic support at different points during the school year. So in order to address that concern, the superintendent and myself met with the superintendent and I met with the leaders of TASH and went over possible solutions to address the concerns. Katie went a step further, Ms. Graves, and took a pretty comprehensive look at the number of times that students were missing practices during the fall season, and this was combined to the fall season, as well as the coaches, and came up with some visuals for you to look at. And this is one such visual. Do you want to address this real quick?
Sure. So what I did, this is a lot of data. So you guys looked at big slides of data, right? And so I thought it would be helpful to look at a snapshot of our varsity sports, and I couldn't look at everything. So I just picked the fall season, because I used to be a data analyst, and sometimes when you portray data in a visual setup, it's much more helpful. So like the who, what, and where. Who are the students? You know, what are the team sizes? So if you look, for example, when I say team size, there's 18 students. So you can, each block represents a student. This is the varsity boys soccer team. I put how many times those students missed ninth period, how many times those students missed academic support, how many students in 9 through 12, how many different teachers did they have? So thank you to Ms. McLaughlin, who does all of the scheduling. She was able to pull 18 students, and what do those students then, you know, how many classes do they have? Now, they may have, you know, 7 periods in a day, and they're interfaced with that many teachers, but now those students are in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. They might be seeing the same art teacher, but it's for a different art class, so I counted that differently. So that's why you have so many 18 students, but they're actually seeing 54 different teachers. They might be seeing the same art teacher, but it's for a different class. So that's where you get into that, that breakdown. And then if the coach was a faculty member, so for fall sports, 5 of our teachers were coaches. This was the classes that they teach, and this was how many times they missed academic support. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's a visual breakdown of, and I didn't do modified, I didn't do JV, I just did varsity, because I really felt like this would be a way of dialing into those sports. And then I handed it over, because this took me hours, like hours to do, but I thought it gave you a really good visual look, and then I handed it over to Mr., what's your name? Jeff. I handed it over to Jeff. We're first name basis, sorry. So I handed it over to Jeff to then make sense of it all. So again, so you see the team size, you see the name of the sport, you see that, like, so when they went to championships, they might have missed 8th period as well. One of the things, though, that I had on the very first slide that one of the coaches pointed out to me is that coaches may not miss academic support, so they might not match up because they may put the students on the bus and then meet them. So, which is like what our golf coach has done.
So in trying to address the problem, the real crux of the issue is if I'm a high school student, academic support is 30 minutes at the end of the day that I can theoretically access any of my teachers. And most students have 5 or 6 teachers. So if they miss academic support, you might ask, well, why couldn't we just have, you know, their teachers come in the following morning and catch them up? Well, you'd have to invite pretty much the entire staff to come in. So one of the solutions we proposed to Tash was, well, what if we just went with maybe one person per department to be like a cover person in the event that students miss academic support because of participation in sports. That's a more economical model. You're not paying 5, you're only paying 1, or 3 or 4, you're only paying 1. The reality is that really wouldn't work because, number one, you can't assume that that faculty member would have the content expertise in all of the different subjects across the discipline. And number two, they're not going to be familiar with where instructionally that student is in the class or where the teacher is for that matter. They wouldn't be familiar with the nuances of what happens day in and day out. And we discussed that with Tash. I mean, we even went so far as to propose 2 teachers per department as a fill-in. So for instance, let's say we know that there are going to be many days that students miss academic support during the fall season. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we scheduled 2 people for math, 2 people, and then on Mondays and Wednesdays, we had 2 people for science, and we just staggered the people throughout the week. It still wouldn't work for the reasons I just elaborated on before. So, big picture, after meeting with the TASH representatives for probably about 40 minutes, there were really no easy solutions that we discussed that would work. And that's not even getting into the notion of the wisdom of having students come in at an earlier time to make up the work. That's not addressing transportation concerns or anything else. So there really is, there are no easy fixes here. Any questions?
I had looked at the slides you sent ahead of time, which was really helpful. Just two things on it. One, I think it's helpful to look at the amount that they're missing within the season. So there may be 180 days of school, but it could be within the 40-day season or within that first quarter of the year. 9 out of 40 classes, let's say, feels like a bigger impact than 9 out of 80, but in a shorter period of time, you may have that impact. The second point is that I think if there's communication, and I don't know how much communication there is ahead of time, but if a teacher can even say, look, this week, it's Monday, this week on Thursday, I'm not going to be at academic support. So if you're going to need assistance or help, please come to me the next few days. So that might exist. I don't know if it exists, but even if it doesn't, if that can be institutionalized, at least then the students can be prepared and leverage what time they do have with the instructor. That makes sense.
Good suggestion.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. One, is the problem exacerbated in the fall relative to other seasons just because the sports are outdoors and it gets darker earlier? So are we really honing in on the biggest problem right now and it's not as big a problem in other times of the year? And then the other question.
I would say that in answer to your first question, and then you can ask your second. Fall is the worst season. I would say spring is second, and winter it's not really an issue. Well, I shouldn't say it's not an issue because there are still 4 o'clock starts up the island where we have to leave early, but the time constraints are most pertinent in the fall because of daylight.
And we have less teams in the winter, so less students and coaches are impacted.
Mr. Bramoff, would you concur?
Yes.
All right.
And then my other question, which might be more for Mr. Brown than for you, but perhaps both of you, is it, so our games, like let's say someone's on the boys varsity soccer team, are they generally having games, let's say twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that they're missing the same class every week, or is it 1 week Tuesday, Thursday, the next week might be Monday, Saturday, the following week might be Wednesday,
I can answer
Friday?
that question. A simple answer, at the high school, we're on AB schedule, so that the days alternate. So Tuesday and Thursday 1 week would be Wednesday and Friday the next, in terms of the AB alternating days. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But so the idea that they're not missing the same class over and over again.
Well, let me rephrase that. The first part was that there's an AB schedule, but in terms of the 9-period day, it's much more likely that the end of the period, the end of the day schedule, which is always the same courses for the most part, those will be impacted more frequently. That makes sense?
Yeah, very few classes alternate day to day. Those are usually electives for the most part. But if you're on a varsity team, if you have science, the lab might be a different time. You've got science every day, you've got math every day, so.
And it's always at the same time.
Always at the same time. So whether
So
it's
it is
Tuesday,
the
Thursday, or
same.
Monday, Friday, if you're missing part of a period, it's usually the same teacher and same class.
And is it my understanding that if you're a senior, you have the option to leave during academic support?
You do. If you're a senior, you have an option.
Okay.
You can either have early, and this is common in most high schools, for instance, Southampton has it as well. You can have early dismissal or late arrival.
As long as you're passing.
Yes. Some students are really crafty and trying to get both. We keep an eye on that. Any other questions?
I know that small schools have their limitations, but, let's say I've got a child that I know is gonna, be a varsity soccer player or whatever. Are there too many limitations to think through, well, maybe I'll make sure that 8th period is like something that may not be as critical as like IB physics or something like that, and might be an elective or something that's not as critical?
Yeah, very limited in that regard. Even the way we hard code things, we're very, just because of the number of singletons we have. Singletons are when you only have one section of a course. So in a district our size, for IB physics, for instance, we don't have 3 or 4 sections of IB physics, we only have one. And we have multiple singletons in our schedule, which really limits us in that regard. That's a good question.
Any other questions from the board? Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
And Ms. Graves, thanks for doing all.
Took so much time to do this. Make sure she, Victoria, we'll have to break that one out and put that one on. Break that one, I don't know if you have that one. That presentation. You, okay.
All right, are we done with the superintendents and administrators reports? All right, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve items 7.1 through 7.14?
So, second.
Nice.
What?
Thank you. Did you catch that, Victoria?
I got it.
Why did you jump right on it?
That's fast.
Waiting for the vote.
Okay, that is unanimous, closing.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve action item? Is there anything in 8.1?
No.
Okay, 8.2?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I request that these be pulled out, just 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4, just to, so that it could be publicly explained why there's an extension.
I'd be happy to do that. Okay. Well, we awarded all these bids to the board for this year with renewable terms for 2 additional years. All of these were the lowest responsible bidders. And I'm also going by the charge that I've received by the board to do everything possible to hire local vendors and employ local people. These are all locals when we call them. I'm sure Paul will attest to the fact they respond quickly and they're very trustworthy, responsible vendors. They've helped us out in several emergencies and other situations that we've called them upon. One is in Sag Harbor, the other 2 I believe in Southampton. The other thing is that we don't believe that we would obtain any material savings by rebidding. In fact, you should know there would be a tremendous cost to the district in time and effort that we've got to structure new bids, put them out in the newspapers, pay the newspapers, review the bids, and they may well and probably will well come in as the lowest bidders once again. We're adhering to the contracts with each of them. We're allowed to extend them up to 2 years. They've provided us great service. They live to the terms of the contract, and it's my highest recommendation that we rehire these vendors for another year.
And we want to have them in place prior to July 1st. We used to wait for our reorg meetings, and reorg meetings happen after July 1st, and if something terrible happens between July 1st and the reorg meeting, that we're trying to make sure we get everything that we're gonna need starting July 1st.
Be a vendor to call.
Yeah, so we will see a few more of these between now and the end of the school year, which is, I think, June 17th is our last meeting. So we'll see these on June 3rd and June 17th, because the board has moved in the direction that they want. Anything that's gotta be in place on July 1st, we're moving out of reorg and putting into the June meetings.
Any other discussion? All right.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Can I get a motion to approve 8.3?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Can I get a motion to approve 8.4?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
That's unanimous.
Victoria, faster.
You're doing all I
Click faster. Did you, can I get a first and second on 8-4?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
It's unanimous.
Motion for 8-5.
So moved.
Second.
It's a fun game. Discussion?
I just had a question. This is removing the cap where, there's a current cap where the district needs approval of the board before they can transfer funds that is a certain level. What is the cap that you're asking for to have the ability to transfer without that approval?
Phil, do you want to take that?
So the cap that the board approves is anything over $10,000.
Right.
We do this every year. This is something that we need to do in order to close our books, but everything is fully documented, and when we do close the books, at the conclusion of the audit, a complete record is provided to the board as to what transfers we were required to do, when we did them, how much they were, and where the money came from and went to. And at no time does any money exceed the budget. Everything is usually retained in codes. And if I may, what normally happens in a school district, I've done this every district I've worked at. A lot of times you'll have money left over in one code within a section, but not in another. So for example, let's say we hired somebody mid-year for salary, and that was not budgeted. However, we've got $30,000, and that person's salary was $30,000, but we have $30,000 in benefits and overtime to accommodate that hire. So we'll do a budget transfer internally at the end of the year to move that money and make sure that that balance occurs, and then we report that to the board.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Okay, it's unanimous.
Can I get a motion to approve 8-6?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Can we get a very brief explanation of what this is?
Mr. Nichols, did you want to take that, or I can? It's the Suffolk County Community College.
Yeah,
Board.
it's just it's really not all that well utilized, but it's an option for our students who want to access it, and it doesn't cost us anything to do, so we do renew every year.
So what are they accessing?
They're accessing a summer program for the most part, where they can take courses there and earn credit.
And it's a much reduced rate. I think it's $54 a credit. So for $150, $160, they can take their first college class.
So it's much different than the traditional Excelsior program where they take courses at Pearson and then pay a reduced fee and can receive credit for those.
Right.
That's a more cumbersome process because our teachers here have to submit their resumes to Suffolk Community and do that kind of thing. This is none of that.
Right, so, and this is communicated out to students and
Yeah,
parents
through the
before the
guidance
summer?
department.
Terrific, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
It's unanimous.
Can I get a motion to approve tenure recommendation for 9-1, Eric Grandma?
Second.
Discussion?
I
Yeah.
would just like to say that I know for a long time we had trouble filling and keeping this position, and I think Mr. Bramoff is a fantastic athletic director. I've seen him with my kids. I see him at events, nights, and weekends. I think what he's done with Spirit Night and the homecoming has been great, so I'm very happy to support this.
Any other discussion?
Okay, it's unanimous.
Congratulations, Mr. Grandma. Can Can I get a motion to approve 9-2 amended Napoli tenure recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
You did.
Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
That's unanimous.
Congratulations to Amanda.
I sent her home.
She sent her home.
I sent her home.
Can't believe you
Long commute.
start early. Can I get a motion to approve 9-3?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All right.
It's unanimous.
Congratulations to Deborah Dooley, speech and language. And the last one, tenure recommendation, could I get a motion to approve 9-4 for Chelsea King?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Is it someone's birthday and they have to get home?
Trying, I'm trying.
I was wondering.
I'm gonna give that one to Chris.
Not a race. Okay. It's his birthday, you can give him everyone.
Trying to get home.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
That is unanimous.
Congratulations to Chelsea King. I'm sure she's going to watch the entire. Fast forward. Do we have any committee reports?
Well, I think, Bill already gave us the audit report, and then you had facilities planning
We
tonight.
do, and our representative from the Facilities Committee, architect Dominic LaPierre, is here for a quick update, as we met tonight.
Hello.
It's his
How's
birthday,
everybody?
so you gotta,
Whose birthday?
it's Ryan's.
Oh, happy birthday. I was wondering why you're all dressed up. There we go. I just wanted to recap. We had a pretty good year. We had some staff changes. Paul, welcome. We spent a lot of time talking about what to name our new building. And I'm glad that seems to have moved along pretty well. No one's thrown anything at me at the supermarket, and those are kind of good signs. I don't know how you all feel, but that's how I feel. We've been working our way through our building condition survey and 5-year capital plan. State of New York is going to be asking all of us to do that again in 2020. We've already been talking about it, but I wanted to share with you here that the staff and the administrative team have done a great job in executing this mind-numbingly complex list at very little cost to us as taxpayers. Just try to remember that when they're coming to you and asking you for a little bit of help to get something tiny done. It's so much easier to have Paul and Eric, to his credit, who came in and did some heavy lifting, not knowing a lot about this stuff 3-4 years ago. It's so much easier to get it done as a low-hanging fruit than to throw it up to bid and be upset and have these really awkward conversations with architects far, far away. Just keep that in mind as you move ahead. As a taxpayer here, these are facilities that we have all paid for. You know, this is $200 million worth of stuff here that we're asking everyone to help take care of. If we have to rebuild it one day, look at Binghamton, big flood, new elementary school, 7 years later, just opened. You know, we need to take care of the stuff we paid for, and we need to provide it for our community. And the one way we do it is by making these lists and trudging through it. So, Eric, Paul, thank you so much. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other committee reports?
I had, nutrition, did you have, no? You're
That's
good.
the garden, but we
Okay, awesome.
did it.
Policy is hard at work. We had a little hiccup where we had to merge our code of ethics. With our migration, we had an old code of ethics, which we would have had to create a brand new one, so we had to merge the two. So we're just waiting for some of that to get vetted, and we hope to have 2 policies put before the board for our next meeting. One that we're going to do away with, which is the board code of ethics, and just have a a standard code of ethics for everybody. So, a very hardworking committee. They're unbelievable. They meet every 3 weeks. Couldn't say enough about them.
Wall of Honor, anything?
Hopefully, we'll be scheduling installation and a small ceremony within the next week or 10 days.
Oh, nice. Great. Excellent. We'll look forward to that. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Liaisons? Anything? All right. Public input 2. Come on up.
So, I come to these meetings I don't normally talk about, I want to take the opportunity here. So, I gather from the newspaper and meetings and emails that we're going to be looking for a new superintendent. Thank you so much for being here. As a taxpayer, we are better off to have had you here for these last few years. Thank you. I'm looking to you guys now. This is one of the most important tasks that the taxpayers ask of you, is selecting a new superintendent. You need to put on your hats. You need to play well together in the sandbox. You need to spend time reading the material, looking at all of it, doing your own background checks. I get emails once a week from school districts around the country because I'm on goofy newsletters. The controller sends me emails. Throughout the country on a weekly basis, administrators at superintendent positions and other positions are not doing great jobs. We have been so lucky here in Sag Harbor since I've lived in this community for 15 years that I don't read about how problems that other districts are having. Thank you. Maybe I haven't read it yet.
No, hasn't happened.
But you're going to be
Thank
asked.
my strict mother for that.
You're going to be asked to spend time going to other meetings, I assume, reading lots of literature, short time frame to do it. You need to spend that time. If that means no Thanksgiving dinner, I'll make you a turkey so you can go to the meeting so you can help pick that new superintendent. Okay? That's what I wanted to share. It's really important to get it right. I was looking through my list of contacts I have in here. I have Catherine Holden, I have John Grotto, I have Carl Gunasaro. Maybe I think I've missed one, but it's important to get it right. And if they want to come to our little community far, far away, there are only a few people who can manage a $40 million budget and do it well. And if they want to come here, you need to go out of the way to meet them and make sure you pick the right one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input 2? All right.
Before we adjourn, I want to say something very quickly. If I could. Just because it was part of the consent agenda. I wanted to thank Tal Litvin and Dana Gasco, because I don't know if I pronounced that right. So between their 2 donations, they're donating about $3,700, which is very sizable. One is for a shed for the elementary school greenhouse, and the other is activity tables for the elementary school. So thank you, it's incredibly generous and appreciated. And then we have a teaching assistant retiring this year, Ms. LaGrassa, and I just wanted to say thank you for your service, and we will miss you, but enjoy your retirement.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.